the owner's responsibility. So if there's damage, the
Good to go? Yeah. Well, it's 3:30, so why don't we go ahead and start the meeting? Let's see. I think we'll have a call to order and roll call.
Sure. Commission Chair Myers.
Here.
Commissioner Burling. Here. Commissioner Brzezowski.
Here.
Commissioner Mickey.
Here.
Commissioner Sowers. Okay, Commissioner Sowers is absent, but we have a quorum.
Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. And we will open up to public appearances. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern, not on the agenda during public appearances. Each person's comments shall be limited to 3 minutes or as otherwise established by the commission. Matters not appearing on commission's agenda will not receive action at the meeting, but may be referred to staff for a future meeting. Persons are not required to give their names, but it is helpful for speakers to state their name so that they may be identified in the meeting, in the minutes of the meeting. Before you, do we have an online presence?
Yeah, there's 2 people on Zoom.
Got it. Okay, thanks. 2 people on Zoom, just not on our screens, just FYI. So we don't see it. Well, hi.
Again, I'm Jessica from Environmental Programs in the Public Works Department, and I'm just here to have a little quip about a reminder for Earth Day next Saturday. I think 2 of you signed up, and thank you so much. I'm looking forward to hanging out with all you guys. Again, it's Saturday, the 22nd of April, 10 to 2 at Devendorf, and we're going to have a little info table for City of Carmel, so that includes hanging out with commissioners and just saying hi, and then I'll also be handing out materials from 3CE, Central Coast Community Energy, since they won't be able to be there, but they are helping us plan the event. So just wanted to come up and say that as a reminder. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jessica. Is that, for signing up, is that something that we can do with you just online, or is that something that?
Yeah, so when was I here, Bob? A month ago?
Yep.
yes.
I believe you signed up, Commissioner Myers, and yeah, I didn't get to bring that list back with me because I was just at a sewer leak just now. So I came unprepared.
Okay, no worries.
But I can email it to you guys if you'd like, and then, no? Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Yeah,
Okay.
that there wasn't-
And I'll send a reminder email if you'd like as well.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question for the public appearance person. maybe?
Absolutely, please.
When is Arbor Day?
It's an Earth Day and Arbor Day event.
Oh, okay.
It's a long title.
You knew that was coming.
I forgot. Thank you for the reminder.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jessica. We'll see you out there. And let's see, is there anyone else from the public who would care to make an appearance?
Um, we have a speaker on Zoom,
We have
Lucinda
someone
Lloyd.
on Zoom. Do you have?
We're not seeing Zoom.
We're not
here.
seeing Zoom.
That's something that Joel controls. I'll send him a message.
Okay. And do you have a name perhaps?
Yeah, Lucinda Lloyd, go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Cindy Lloyd. Thank you, Chair Myers and members of the commission. I'm just putting a little plug in for you all to visit Mission Trail Nature Preserve, but specifically going around the front of Flanders and overlooking the meadow. At this time of year, it is absolutely gorgeous. And I spent 5.5 hours up there yesterday putting in plants and weeding around Randall Bishop's bench. And I also cleared underneath Robert Boger's bench because a lot of erosion, mud had come down and weeds had grown up. And it was, for me, an absolutely lovely way to spend an afternoon. And I would just encourage you to go now because all the grasses are green and high. I pulled out just so many sticker grass, and I've got a pile of them on the steps that kind of go up into the native plant garden. And I did send a little note out to Bob, actually to Rob Culver, but he's on vacation, to ask if it could be picked up. So I'll give it to you there, Bob. You can either pick it up or I'll start bringing it home piece by piece. So anyway, that's my plug for Mission Trail Nature Preserve and specifically the meadow area. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Cindy. Appreciate that. Anyone else online care to make a public appearance?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, with that, then we'll go ahead and close public appearances and ask for announcements.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have 3. First, I wanted to thank Nova Ramirez, our city clerk, but she's filling in for Yvette today because she's also on vacation. So thank you, Nova. City forester, I'm not allowed to say anything whatsoever, but maybe I can give some hints such as, I'm going way out on a limb. There were a number of applicants, they were screened, they were shortlisted. The first round of interviews will be finished this week. So finalists will be interviewed within the next couple of weeks probably. Okay, we're getting close.
Okay.
On the environmental compliance manager, the last person was Agnes, who also worked at Mission Trail, Nature Preserve, North Dunes, et cetera. We have a candidate we are making an offer to, so too premature to announce a name, but that person also gets involved with forestry, parks, and beach related stuff. So both those positions, we're getting close to filling both positions, which is great news. And last, obviously, it's pretty light agenda this month. But I think when we get to Tom's presentation, you'll be pretty blatantly clear as to why it's a light agenda. So I'll looking forward to that. I think it'll be very enlightening, and we certainly want feedback from the commission and the public on how we've been handling the storm. A lot of impacts from the storm, how we're prioritizing, that type of thing. So that's why it's a relatively light agenda. Hopefully, back in May, next month, we'll be more of a typical meeting. That's all I got.
Any other announcements? Doesn't look like it, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine in nature and do not require discussion or independent action. Members of the commission or the public may ask that any items be considered individually for purposes of commission discussion and/or for public comment. Unless that is done, one motion may be used to adopt all recommended actions. So from the public, I don't see anyone that might ask otherwise. Anyone online with a hand up, perhaps?
There's no hands raised.
Then do we have a motion to approve the March 9th, 2023 meeting minutes?
I move we approve the March 9th minutes.
Okay.
Roll call vote. Chair Myers,
Yes?
Commissioner Burling,
Yes.
Commissioner Brzezowski, Commissioner Mickey,
Yes.
Commissioner Sowers. Oh, sorry.
Excellent.
Motion carries 4-0-1.
Wow, this could be record-setting speed. Into orders of business. Orders of business are agenda items that require city council, board, or commission discussion, debate, direction to staff, and/or action. So with that, I'll turn over, looks like we've got a presentation on the city's prioritization, data, and actions related to tree concerns.
Thank you, Chairman Myers. Hello, commissioners and everyone. In this presentation, really the goals of this are to provide as transparent of a picture as possible relating to how the city manages storms, recovery efforts, and the city's methodology for addressing ongoing tree concerns. We, of course, are looking for feedback from the commissioners and from residents. And the intended outcomes of this presentation, we wanted to make it clear that we have been listening to residents. It's very evident, sentiments in town regarding rather extensive damage from the recent storms. And we want people to feel safe. We want to convey our procedures, how we prioritize trees, maintain them, our permitting process, and us seeking feedback accordingly. So the questions that this presentation will answer essentially come from the residents, from what we have heard. How does forestry manage storm efforts? What is the criteria for removing trees on an emergency basis? How is the city prioritizing tree assessments and removals? How fast or slow is the city in issuing tree permits? When will stumps and storm cleanup be finished? How will the urban forest be managed moving forward? Here's the outline that we'll cover. Now, this chart at the top here, this is our current tally of fallen trees, 47. We had removed 30 on an emergency basis. And if you take a look at the third column here, the broken branches, that's actually 43 incidents that were reported, and some of those incidents consist of several different branches. So that's a vast understatement. There were way more than 43 branches that were broken or hanging during the storms, but we're going off of the numbers that were reported. But the fallen trees and removed trees are actual, and they are accurate. Now this totals, the first three columns total about 120 incidents. The city staff was able to take care of all of them, but 57. It's actually it's pretty impressive. And I'd like to draw your attention to the pending assessment. This is where the gold's at down here. Of the trees that fell or were removed, which did the city already know about? Which were already on our pruning list and our removal list? And which priority category were they assigned? Low, medium, or high? Which of those trees were assessed to have previously been healthy trees? And then we can get into some more creative things like what types of soil were those fallen trees or removed trees growing in. Kind of an example of how we can get at that is you can take a look at the soil layer on the right-hand side here, and this is found on our city website, the GIS map, and then we can overlay that by plotting an incidence map, and we can see if we can glean any telling information from that. I certainly think it'd be reasonable to post it on the forestry page. Yeah, thank you. Excellent. The question was, where will this be posted? Bob, if that's something that's doable. Now, this slide is, in reality, what does it actually look like during a storm? What do our efforts look like in the office and out in the field? We had pretty much all hands on deck for our public works staff that were out in the field, several crews. Sometimes they broke up and had to address, unique one-off situations. We had 9 City Hall staff members I can think of that were in constant communication with me. I was continually doling out, can you check this out? Can you send me pictures of this? Can you assess if this tree is uprooting? And it was so helpful. So we had so many folks who were contributing, and we had 4 of us in the Public Works office, including myself, that we're receiving phone calls, and that is the clutch number that is on the screen there, and that goes to all of our phones. What you're seeing, the screenshot there, is an actual real-time photo or screen capture of our shared document that we were all using. The 4 of us who were receiving all of the incoming calls, we all had a shared document that we would all contribute to, and then myself and Rob Culver, Public Works Superintendent, would then contact whether tree service companies, our own staff, or even City Hall staff to go and assess the situation or to just give out the work right on the spot. So we were all working out of the same document. So that was a screenshot from a living document during the storm. Now, prioritization of storm response. For a moment, I'd actually like to draw your attention to the right-hand side of this slide. That's an actively uprooting tree. It's a wonderful example of what a fissure in the ground looks like that was not previously present before the storm. So this was an obvious one that we went to, immediately contracted it out. But regarding the information here on the slide, we have the highest priority of what we respond to, aka what we immediately send a person out into the field for, are the top 2 bullet points: fallen trees, particularly with power lines, and anything is actively uprooting or an active failure. The second category is hanging limbs over streets and walkways and trees that are reported as abnormally leaning. And then the third is non-threatening hanging limbs, aka limbs that are not present over walkways or streets. And debris removal, which we're still in the process of taking care of. We've gotten a lot of it done, but we're still there. So the fiscal impact of this, we've so far received $123,000 in invoices. We're awaiting quite a bit more in invoices, and there's the information regarding those. We estimate the total from these contractors to be about $200,000 for the March storms. So in general, how does the city prioritize tree prunings and tree removals? We have our forester use essentially a scale of risk assessment from low to medium to high for each of the prunings and removals that we have on our list, and those are current numbers up until today. We currently have 23 trees for pruning or removal in our low priority category, 58 medium, 46 and high. We're contracting about 30 of those high priority ones out. And if you haven't noticed, we have a lot of stumps in town.
So these high ones, these are trees that will be removed separate from what you shared earlier, the 46 that had fallen.
That's correct.
And the ones that had fallen, that was just March, correct? 'Cause I remember
Those were
Sarah
just
was-
March.
Okay, because Sarah at one point said there were like 80 at some point. So the total number since January is then well over 100, I guess.
It is certainly over 100. Yes. Yep. That's accurate. Thank you.
Tom, you're
Yes.
using low, medium, and high instead of upper canopy and so on. I know Sarah Davis liked low, said it was much more normal throughout the country to use low, medium, and high. Is that what we're doing now?
Well, we still use upper canopy and lower canopy to designate the heights of trees. That's how we categorize, broad categorization of trees. But the low, medium, and high that I'm referring to here are when we know that a tree needs either pruning or removal. How do we prioritize when we'll get to it? Well, we have to put them in some kind of order. So there's high priority, low priority, high, low, high, medium, and low. So that's our method of being able to separate those. I actually have that book with me today, in case anyone.
And I'm sorry, the previous slide where you said it was interesting was you're going to look at the 46 that fell and see how they had been rated prior to falling.
That's
right?
correct.
So you'll be able to get an assessment of verify
Yes.
your rating system is somehow robust.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And we will come back
Okay.
to present that information.
Okay.
It does take quite a bit of time, actually, to go through and specify exactly which tree fell, overlay it with our map of 10,000 city trees, and determine exactly which one it was. So it takes a bit of time, but we have a lot of good data thus far. Now, for our city crews, our city tree crew, let's go into the assumption that they can remove or prune 3 trees per week. That might sound like a low number to some folks. It takes an awful lot of resources and personnel to plan, get their gear ready, get out there, do the job, clean it up, come back, report it being done, enter it, and take care of the logistics. Our city staff, our tree crew is also, by the way, the ones that are in charge of watering, planting trees, resolving tree matters as they arise. There continue to be broken branches throughout the year. That's what happens when you have 10,000 trees. People, of course, sometimes take days off. They are also in charge of our landscaping, all of the landscaping, these same 3 staff members. They take care of stump removals, the beach care, filling mutt mitts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can get them committed to 3 to 4 days, then a week on tree removals and prunings, then that number right there of the 3 removals or prunings per week is accurate. Now let's take the scenario of 99 trees that we currently have backlogged. In the prior slide, the difference between the 30 or so that we're contracting out and the rest of low, medium, and high, well, as of yesterday was 99. I just added some more today. But for the sake of this example, there's 99 trees backlogged. 3 trees per week is 33 weeks to get to. That's 8 or 9 months. That's also not considering that we're adding more than 3 trees per week to our list. So effectively, you never get to the backlog. So that's why we're relying on our tree service contractors, of which we have 3. We'll get to more of that in just a little bit. And then stumps, we have quite a lofty goal in the following fiscal year and in subsequent years to get those 500 stumps removed and also open up new planting locations. Shifting gears here to permits, we have received 70 permits in March this past month. That is exactly 5 times the amount that we normally received every other month of 2022. We received just under 15 per month. We received 70 last month. 62 of those 70 permits were issued. There's an assortment of reasons that 8 were not issued. Sometimes we need additional information from the applicant. Sometimes there are disputes regarding the tree's ownership. There's a multitude of reasons. So sometimes some carry over to the next month. But our average turnaround time was 7 days. It was actually 6.6 days. But 7 days. Before, we were, in the past year, we were averaging 3 to 4 weeks, about 24 days. So we've cut that by 75% with less staff. So we have been hauling it.
Just for clarification, when you say before, so how many months in a row would you say you've been able to turn around in 7 days? Or that's just for March?
This is just for March.
Okay.
This data is just for March. Great question. But as we go, this was one of the questions that the residents said. Well, how come it takes so long to get a tree permit? And I said, what a great opportunity to be able to actually do the exact math and figure it out. And we took the exact amount of days that it took from the city trees when they were entered into our system, and from when the payments for the private trees when populated in our system. So we took the exact amount of days, averaged them, and those were 7 days. And by the way, that also includes 3 of the permits that are pending out of the 8 remaining from this past month. We also waived about 150 permits on an emergency basis, which the municipal code provides the authorization to do. So we did that during the storms. We implemented that. That emergency waiver is no longer active. Folks do have to apply, and by and large, folks have been doing an outstanding job at abiding by the permitting process.
Was that 150 just for March, or was that over the course of the storm?
That was just for March. Yeah. So all of the trees that you had seen on a prior slide, including about 20-ish private trees. So in general, the state of the forest is that we clearly have an aging forest. A lot of our trees were planted a long time ago, relatively at about the same period of time. Many of those are coming to age at this time right now. It's an aging forest. We have had a couple other challenges, reduced budgets and staffing during COVID-19, of which we have recovered, thankfully. Prolonged drought leading to recent heavy saturation and storms and wind from the storms. So that has, for all of the trees in town, that obviously posed a challenge for us in order to manage this. But we recently brought on a consulting group, Davy Resource Group, who is helping us assess all 9,800 city trees. And they're going to be able to propose new planting locations based on certain criteria, as well as provide a tree species palette. Sometimes people say, why do we have almost a monoculture of trees? Essentially just Monterey pines or just coastal live oaks. So they're going to be able to analyze Carmel's unique local environment and suggest appropriate tree species, if they differ.
I have a question about that. I am curious why we keep planting some of the Monterey pines and where we're choosing to plant them. I feel like we're creating these problems for us to deal with in another 80 plus years. Are we going to look at that? Is that what they're going to be looking at? Some of the choices that we've been making?
Yes.
Okay. And where we're locating them?
That's exactly what they're going to be looking at. For the time being, or for the past several months, at least in the public rights of way, we've been heavily diversifying our trees with, there's like a PG&E list. You could Google it. It's PG&E height appropriate trees below power lines. If you type that in, there's a list with great information. We've been using some of that, and it is localized generally to the Central California coast. So that's been helpful for us. But yes, Davey will be helping us out with.
If we determine that we have put some more recently in places that they shouldn't be, types of trees or placement, will we move those? Will we consider moving them?
I think that's perfectly reasonable. The answer is yes.
Okay.
What this all comes down to is how do we make the urban forest safe?
Okay.
Whatever that takes is what we need to do.
Okay.
That's my opinion on the matter. I think that's a great question. These are the questions that we should be asking.
Thank
So
you.
yes.
Thank you.
Regarding staffing, after a former forester's departure, after Sarah Davis had left the city of Carmel, that left us with one full-time forestry staff. Not sure who that poor guy is. I'm sure he's had a busy time. In the interim, our former forester actually set us up with our consulting arborist, Justin Nono, an ISA certified arborist. He is outstanding, has impeccable credentials, and is incredibly intelligent relative to his specialization. And he is conducting almost exclusively inspections for tree permits. That's why we continue to ask folks, whether it be for private or city trees, to submit permits. That's what we had hired him to do. That's on his contract effectively. So when he comes in, we give him a big old stack of permits, and he goes out in the field, and he's been doing a darn good job per the numbers that we had shown before.
Is this resource why the days have gone from 24 to 7? Part of the reason why you've had a dedicated person to just deal with permits?
I think it's two-part. I think that is half of it, and the other half is we had to reprioritize our own priorities within forestry. We also manage several different contracts. We take care of all the invoicing. We are inundated with folks who are reaching out to us for communication. We do a ton of different things, and we have had to, where you allocate time to one matter, you have to take it away from another matter. So this is an incredibly important matter for folks in town, and we've realized that, so we have allocated more time to that. But yes, having him specializing in just permits has been very important. We also onboarded a full-time temp to assist in forestry. Louise Shervington is present with us today. Louise has done and continues to do an outstanding job. Many folks in town have heard from Louise. Louise helps process our permits, takes care of a lot of those logistics, communicates with a ton of residents, with our contractors. Louise has done an outstanding job, so thank you for your work. I believe Bob had provided a forestry recruitment update. I would like to highlight this screen. these are accurate numbers. Well, first I should just say that the platform that we use to take our incoming calls and voicemails, it's called Fresh Desk. So if anyone hears us refer to Fresh Desk, each call, each email they call them tickets. We have received 398 emails and voicemails in the month of March, just via Fresh Desk. And I went back, and by the way, I counted our calls. We had 487. I wanted these to be accurate numbers. That total, I believe, is 885 correspondences between two people, us two. So I have very much appreciated people's patience, and we really do need it, and we continue to ask. But it is a challenge for residents who very frequently call and say, I left a message yesterday and Tom hasn't gotten back to me. And we're doing our very best. We are getting through a ton of these. And by the way, the overall communications that we received to and from into Public Works in the month of March was 1,414 communications. That was between 4 staff members, because we had the other 2 staff members assisting us during the storm days. We still have over 300 people to get back to. These are, when you're talking about these numbers, the numbers almost get lost because it's so much. It really is. It's a lot. But we're doing our very best. We're really trying to prioritize things, and we have to go by a priority system. So it is unfortunate for some folks who do actually have healthy trees and want to ask very reasonable questions, but we do have to get to some urgent matters sometimes ahead of others. So we're really doing our best to get back to everyone.
414 communications. That's only 50 a day, including the weekends. You still have time to get a little lunch.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of other projects in addition to trees that are going on.
Yeah, but
Town feels about that.
Louise has been taking on the lion's share of the Fresh Desk resolutions. And for the first time in a long time, Louise came on board about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And since then, this is the first time that we have exceeded our responses compared to the received emails and voicemails per that data up there. And then in conclusion, the city will provide an updated storm data to inform our methods. I said per slide 6. Whoops. These questions down there, that's what we'll continue to work on. It takes quite a bit of time, but we will get there.
Can we go back to that slide? Because I wanted to comment on that slide anyway,
No,
if I may. No.
I'm kidding. Yes, go ahead.
Right there. I just wanted to clarify 2 things on this. One is fallen trees 47. That means when they were reported to us, they were already on the ground. In addition to those 47, plus 30 had to be removed because they were about to fall. So it's not just 47 or 30. It was 77 trees that are already gone so far in the month of March. I just want to make that clear. And then also, while we're on this slide, the number of incidents, I guess that's the Fresh Desk.
Incidents of what?
You showed the live chart on the active incidents.
Oh,
How many of incidents did we receive in the month of March? I thought we would put that on the slide.
yeah, great point. 149 incidents in the month of March. So some of those did not end up being something. Some of those ended up being trees that had fallen, but those were all of the incoming calls related to storms that were received in the month of March.
Okay,
Thank you.
If you post this online, it would be worth putting a few asterisks, like, just so that people are clear, this is like March only, not the January. It'll save you more phone calls if people.
Sure.
If people have more questions. I just think that anybody who's, a lot of people are probably interested so that they know these aren't duplicative, right?
Yeah.
Those, just a few of those asterisks and comments would be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Reduce your live calls.
Will do. Thank you. Conclusion round 2 is the city will also provide updates on our urban forest master plan. That is what Davie Resource Group is helping us with. So when they're doing this tree inventory of all the trees in town, when they're preparing this tree species palette, when they're proposing planting locations. Those all are going to inform our urban forest master plan that Davie Resource Group is working on. So continue to provide updates on that. We're also seeking feedback from residents and commissioners about what else would you like to know. We will be happy to provide that. We want to provide this. We want the most up-to-date data that's important to folks in town and here for our commissioners. And then finally, what guidance would you recommend? And we will report back with that information.
Tom, thank you for this presentation. I have a few comments. I imagine commissioners will probably have a few more. Don't mind if I take the lead?
Please.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
First of all, the city undertaking during this last storm was monumental. I was out on the streets from the very get-go and was impressed at how quick the city was to be at residents' side. The feedback I got from our residents was only praise for how quickly the city was acting. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for the prioritization that you already had in place, and for explaining it. I think that's helpful to a community that feels like every tree in town came down. You say it's 10,000 trees, we had 47 that had fallen, we know, another 30. I wonder when we talk about an aging forest, and you said clearly it's an aging forest, I might challenge that and truly how aging it is. There's certainly a collection of older trees, and when you do that overlap, you can see where they are, and they need to be addressed, and I think that's what's happening, and I appreciate the way your approach is going about it. I'm concerned that 7-day piece, in terms of permit turnaround time, I know it's happening right now, how realistic that will be in going forward. And how many permits I've applied for in the city for whatever it's been, I certainly don't expect I'm going to see it back in 7 days, and I don't necessarily think that residents do overall. I don't want to speak for residents per se, but I'll speak for myself. I think in high priority situations that might be the case, and hopefully, that's where you guys figure out how to make it 1 day versus 21 days. But I don't want people to suddenly think that we're going to be able to have the resources to turn that around. That's a concern of mine. The $200,000 in terms of invoicing that you're going to see from outside contractors, are we pursuing any state or federal funding, emergency funding, to help offset this cost? I'm just curious where we're at.
Yeah, no, thank you for addressing. I actually meant to address that and had forgotten. We do have $150,000 from now until the end of the current fiscal year. So 3/4 of the final tally will all go to the contractors. We will likely have to ask council for additional funds in the next month or two once we receive the remainder of the outstanding invoices. We are pursuing funds. I believe there was a FEMA representative in our office the other day.
Yeah, if I may, let me clarify that. So for the storm events in January, we had a number of meetings with FEMA and the Office of Emergency Services, the state, talking about all the city impacts from the January storms only. So far, I don't think there's been a declared disaster for the March storms. Hopefully there will be. Hopefully we'll get our $200,000 back, but we're not there yet. So I think we incurred roughly $90,000 for tree impacts back in January. In fact, on Tuesday, we had a representative from FEMA literally come to Tom's office and sat there and looked at the same charts that we're looking at now and got copies of all the invoices. And I think we have good possibility of getting reimbursed for the $90,000 for damage to trees in January. All bets are off for March at this point, but hopefully the same process, maybe the same process. But it would be a whole nother application. So it's not like it's one continuous storm. It is to us, but not to FEMA.
Got it. And then my last comment was just around the Davy Research Group?
Resource group, yes.
Yeah, they, essentially, in my mind, it sounds like they're coming in to do the job of our potential new forester.
No.
Is that not the case?
No,
Like-
I'll clarify that.
Okay.
Okay, so if you recall, this goes back to several prior meetings. Davy Resources Group was selected through a qualification-based selection process to prepare our urban forest master plan. Our prior forester developed the specifications for them to do the work for that master plan.
Okay.
And it was based on winning that $150,000 CAL FIRE grant. So those two, the technical requirements have to mate together. There has been some additional work since then, like the tree palette that we want to do that's not covered, but that's just funding. Just funding. So they are off and running on developing that urban forest master plan. There was a delay, of maybe a 3-month delay at the very beginning for contractual legal reasons. We got past that hurdle. Then that's when we were started to get into the steering committee issue. Yes, we were suggesting, and the commission decided to bolster this commission with a few other, hopefully experts with different perspectives, to review and comment on the master plan as it develops incrementally. That in no way, shape, or form is the forester. The forester will be a person. Hopefully we get that person soon. Should be a person with a penny buck. So Davy Resource Group, maybe they're a third done, 40% at the most, somewhere in there. So they just finished the tree inventory. That's why we know that they looked at 9,800 and something trees. So that was a big initial task, but they have other we're getting into the weeds of the technical requirements. They're getting into that now. And in the near future, we want them to come here and present, okay, here's the results of our inventory. Here's the results of our soil analysis. Here's the results of our canopy analysis. And all this stuff that I don't understand, but they do. So that's an ongoing project. That's for another 9 months. It still has a ways to go.
But the 10,000 trees are just city trees, right?
Those are just city trees.
Right, so we probably have double that or more in,
Probably more.
Private trees also?
They're only are looking at city trees.
yeah, so it's kind of it's a piece of the forest.
Correct.
It's not the
Small
whole
piece.
forest, right?
But, right, I'm sorry, you're right, but the tree palette,
fact.
hey, don't plant cactus, don't plant eucalyptus, whatever, would be citywide, would be a new citywide standard.
Yeah.
So private people couldn't be planting trees that are not harmonious with our forest.
But if most lots are supposed to have at least 4 trees on them, you can imagine how many we have more than 10,000. But the other thing, let me say something.
It's important fact, I'm sorry, but it's important fact because the private trees are
More than-
likely significantly more than the city trees, right? So it's not really a complete
My concern with the state,
analysis.
my concern with the Davy Group, which I've already expressed to you, is it's getting all this information. I think it first needed to know where people were, and you thought it should go just the other way. Now, they've got their figures, and we need to get a really clear idea of where people are with so many upper canopy trees that we don't see the ocean anymore. They fall. We need, even before all these trees fell, there was a big urge for changes. Different, if you look at it in 1989, the Friends of the Forest developed. I grew up here from 43 on, and the trees were not such a big deal. We had very nice trees. We never were barren of trees. But once the Friends of the Forest got going, and they were afraid that we would take away too many trees, and so they went the other way. And they're still doing that. I mean, Marcia Sutherland called out more upper canopy trees in our last meeting. So I think I'm concerned that that group got together, and has their figures, and that's going to outweigh what we want the citizens to say.
Okay, if I may, we talked about this before. Yeah, very valid comment. Again, we hired Davy for their expertise in developing urban forest master plans. That's what they do. That's their expertise. And it would be very technical. Now, there's the outreach component that hasn't really started yet. Outreach to this commission / with a steering committee, outreach to the public. There's a couple of meetings are planned a little bit down the road. We get that feedback. Now, once someday the commission will adopt or recommend that the city council adopt the master plan. That goes to the city council. Hopefully they'll, okay, great, let's adopt the master plan. Another part of this, which kind of goes with private trees, is the tree ordinance. We have 2 tree ordinances that we started to update even before we hired Davey.
Yeah, it needs to
We put it on hold. Wait a second, we don't want to update the ordinance, do the master plan. Wait a second, let's make some changes and then do the ordinance again. So we put it on hold intentionally. But that ordinance will identify, and the subsequent policy from that ordinance will identify, should there be, 4 upper canopy trees per lot, or 2, whatever, I don't know. Whatever the numbers are. I'm still a little confused.
We have plenty of trees.
Okay, so again, this is, the Davey Research is it's not the ordinance. It's to develop guidelines based on the technical experts that do master plan to give us a framework to work on. The city currently does have a urban forest master plan, very outdated. So it's certainly very outdated. We need to refresh. This will be all state-of-the-art, information and technology and all this stuff. So it'll be a great tool. It doesn't mean and hopefully we get to the point where we all agree and get public feedback and we're all comfortable with an adopted master plan. That's a master plan. Now we have to implement recommendations in the master plan, but we also have to modify the ordinances so that make sure everyone follows the law of what we're supposed to be doing. So there's a whole lot of parts. We're still kind of at the beginning.
But as a group, I'm curious how Davey would, obviously they have expertise in this area, which is why they've been hired for this.
Right.
But to analyze 30% of the forest, meaning just the city portion of the trees, doesn't really quite feel like it's complete. And it could lead to recommendations that you need trees planted 1 for 1, for example, because it's not taking into account the total population of trees. We maybe are overplanting. I'm just raising the possibility if we're requiring this 1 for 1 tree removal, tree planting, right? So I think somehow it would be helpful to understand their perspective on that.
Hold that question for when Davey's here someday. But also, for my understanding is that the inventory was for city trees, so we know exactly what the city owns and the condition and the height and all that kind of stuff. Their other technical studies is citywide, all the trees, the tree canopy. They're not just looking along the streets, they're looking at the tree canopy city as a whole.
Oh.
They're looking at the soils analysis, city as a whole. They're looking at how much carbon stuff, what is it, carbon, that gets sucked up, eaten up by all the trees collectively, and the impact. So they are looking at the big picture for some of that technical work, but the inventory, they're not going to everyone's yard and saying you have 3 trees and the health of those trees, because it would cost us a fortune.
It is relevant information as we think about updating ordinances and
Yes.
what the requirements are for property owners though, right?
Right.
Because I think to not take into account that additional inventory
Right.
would be incomplete.
Right. And if I might, we're not doing anything like hidden in the back room. You will get a fair share. You will have lots of opportunities to comment on the master plan. But as I believe Sarah notified you, we're up and running. We're getting started. Long ways to go, and certainly we'll have opportunities for comments from you, the steering committee additions, and the public. And then the city council might chime in. They might have some tweaks as well. And then we get into the ordinances. But that's a year out. That's 2 years out or so.
When was the last plan done, Bob? What are we working off of, time-wise?
Wasn't it 2002 about?
2000, I believe,
Okay.
yes.
20 years ago, okay.
Any other comments from the commission regarding the presentation that's been made to us?
I just had another question for Tom, kind of going off of the aging forest. Are you speaking more specifically about certain species? Are you, when you say that, are there certain species that are aging more and those are the ones that, or is it a general, are you seeing that there's a general just aging of the forest?
I was broadly referring to city trees.
Okay.
Many of our pines in particular, if
Mhm.
I'm being specific, many of our city-planted Monterey pines have been here a while.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if it might have been before your time, Commissioner Mickey, but several months back, the prior forester had a graphic about the age of the forest as a whole.
Mm.
There was charts, and it said, are we overall, big picture, are we a mature forest, a young forest, an ancient forest, I don't know.
Right.
And it was, we were collectively, as a whole, we were on the mature mature side.
Season.
So we're seasoned. We're well refined forest.
Wise.
A wise
But I
forest.
think, if I may, and again, as you well know, I'm no expert on trees, but it seems like the Monterey pines in
Yeah.
particular are the ones that have been more than their fair share, failing. It's because of their age.
Mhm.
They're very, very tall, they're old, and then the drought really hit hard.
And their roots are shallow.
And the roots were shallow,
Mhm.
and then we had hellacious storms and hellacious winds.
Really?
So it was the
That
perfect
last
start.
one was scary.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Thank
I
you.
guess I would just like to say thank you. I think it's so evident how much personal commitment you have to the role you're in, and you're, obviously, the department is very short-staffed. So it's a real credit to both of you and the volunteers and people that are helping you be able to try and meet these needs of people that, I'm sure, even if you have a healthy tree question, you probably, it's coming from a place of safety concern right now for people, right? So I think being able to meet the residents is really fantastic. My question to you, Bob, would be, I think, retention is really important in a city organization, and
We've been working on that.
we need, but it's imperative, right?
Right.
To have continuity of leadership
Yes,
and to not.
absolutely.
And so to make sure that, I hope that as a city and department, we're doing things to make sure that we're improving the chances of retaining the resources that we have.
Couple more, just a couple of
Sure.
final comments. Tom's effort in the last few months, I mean, he's been here 7 months, 8 months? Which is 49 dog months, something like that. His efforts from day one have been far above and beyond anyone's possible expectations. He is fantastic. Louise, who is an employee week to week, has asked, well, should I come back next week? You're not going anywhere. Remember that, what was it, 33 weeks? Somewhere in there we'll even have that question, but we have a long backlog, as you well, and you're doing a fantastic job. As a temporary employee, all surpassed all expectation. And if I may, Justin Nunn, our contract arborist, has exceeded all expectations. And without that, we'd be a world of hurt. 2 other quick things, same topic. I was interviewed by the San Francisco Chronicle yesterday, I believe. And the reporter apparently lives here part-time or something. And he had met with some residents, like, what the heck's going on with the trees? Everything's falling. No one ever calls back. It's horrible, horrible nightmare. So I talked to the reporter for half an hour. I told them it was kind of good timing. Told them about what are we doing to mitigate, what we did in the past, what we're doing now, what we will be doing in the future, the master plan, for example. And I think I got the impression he was duly impressed. There's going to be an article in the paper, San Francisco paper, this weekend. I don't know when. Once it's published, probably on Monday morning, I'll forward it to the commissioners and the city council. I hope I did a good job, but I think I did okay.
If you didn't, just don't forward it.
I was told no jokes before I call them back, but I don't know.
They haven't been able to write a positive article about anything in the past month, if you follow them. I
But-
read it every day.
I got the impression that reporters think, well, we're trying to clean up the mess. No, we're doing all these things. So I think that's what turned it around from a negative to oh, wow, you guys are really hustling. You're doing a great job. Hopefully that's what comes out of it. And then the other thing was, I talked to a gentleman who is the chairman of the board of the Arts and Science Institute. And they've been following, one of them lives around here too, been following what's been going on. He wants to set up a symposium of tree experts, that they would pay for all expenses and notify the local newspaper and meet at Sunset Center, Carpenter Hall, somewhere, maybe here, I don't know. And have these experts talk about what we should do about our forest. And I said, well, that's welcome with open arms. Couple things. Let's get a forester first. Give us a little breathing room. We're a little bit busy right now. And also, let's make sure that we're on the same page with Davy Resource Group, because if they're saying, gotta have, I'm being silly, cactus, gotta have a lot of cactus, these technical experts, and Davy is pushing on oak trees or whatever, we gotta be on the same page. It's gonna be an unhappy meeting. But we wanna get them, once we have a little bit more, it's just an initial phone call, the guy's out of the country, when he comes back, a month or two, we're gonna be brainstorming a little bit here before we have the actual meeting. No, Northern California. But I think he's from here or used to be here or something. So anyway,
Maybe we can put it on the back burner.
yeah, it's on the back burner now, but I think it'd be an interesting idea. If they want to, they want all expense paid, we just show up.
I don't know, I think you have to be careful about
Okay.
that sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Just
really confusing issue and
particularly with the investment in Davy. And I mean, it's not, I'm not saying no, but I think sometimes just because someone's going to give it to you doesn't mean it needs to be integrated into the work that's already underway. Otherwise, it could be disruptive.
How about this, let's make it a future topic. Again, this was just an initial 15-minute call, that I call from out of the blue. And make it a future topic once I call him again, once he comes back from the country. And then fine tune it and then ask the commission, hey, do you want to proceed with this or we can scrap it? Done. Topic 3.
Let's see, before topic 3, why don't we open up for public comment?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Do we have any hands up online in that our chamber is rather bare?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
No hands on Zoom, then we'll go ahead with our orders of business to topic number 3, Public Works Director's Report, March 2023.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, let's see. Let's see, last month I already talked about what the council did at the March meeting. In April meeting, the only thing to report, which is important, is about the Capital Improvement Program workshop that was held on April the 5th, right here. I was right there at that podium for what, an hour, Nova? You said 29 minutes and no more? But there's, it looks like 6 potential projects. Again, we talked about old projects, finished projects, carryover projects, things we've already heard, and some new projects. Not really in the report yet, because it's hot off the press. But there's 6 projects that are on the radar, not approved yet, on the radar for next fiscal year starting in July. So in no particular order, the shoreline repairs. Remember we had the inner roll of Harricka-Sunich, talk about the revetments and the seawall and beach stairs. So I suggest that we put in $250,000 to start the design and construct what we can for the first $250,000. The council was pushing, they'd rather get something built. But, so it kind of balanced because we need to design it. There's also, we have to get coastal commission approval, which is going to delay things. But at least it sounded like they were supportive of providing some significant funding to get the design going on that. Second is the coastal engineering study, phase 2, for another $100,000. That task 1 was the first phase of 4 tasks in phase 1, and this will be phase 2. A beautification for $25,000, mostly for trees, planting, and potentially to help work with Carmel Cares on the Ocean Avenue medians. More information to come on the medians. Fourth is Mission Trail Nature Preserve invasives removal for $15,000. Fifth is the North Dune habitat. I'll talk more about that in a second. $15,000, some ongoing monitoring, maintenance. And sixth is, last but not least, we have 2 forestry trucks that were used in the storms by our field crews. One's a 2000, one's a 2002. Literally, one of the doors, the driver door, blew off in the wind and it was like dangling. So we got approval to replace those ancient vehicles with EV vehicles, and hopefully we get some reimbursement. That's what happened at the council meeting last week. Forestry Division report, Tom kind of covered it all. There's a couple of miscellaneous other things that weren't necessarily covered. Maybe one thing. Our on-call landscape maintenance contract, Town and Country, is working on 35 task orders, covering a range of services, weed whacking, sweeping, raking, debris removal, all kinds of different things. Okay, so we haven't forgot about landscape maintenance. Climate Action Adaptation Plan. Well, we talked about the shoreline assessment last month. It's unclear to me if there's going to be a climate committee reinstated or if the Planning Commission will take over that role of overseeing climate-related projects. But of course, beach-related projects will come before this commission. Update on volunteer organizations. Carmel Cares has been busy in March. March 2nd, it's a tech startup company, Alcyon, had 18 people pick up 17 pounds of trash. March 25th, they had 65 volunteers starting at Devendorf, and they set up a grid pattern. For those who read the Friday letter, this is redundant. But went all over town, and they cleaned up for Clean California Day. Mostly focused on cigarette butts and litter. Carmel High School Interact Club worked with the Carmel Cares to upgrade the landscaping at San Antonio and 4th. I think that was last month or 2 months ago. The students from the high school came before the commission and talked in the public comments about doing something. So that was
Saturday of the storm.
They did it the Saturday of the storm.
It was the morning.
I thought it was canceled. That was my question on
It
Monday.
looks beautiful.
Yeah.
They did a really nice job.
Yeah. That's
Looks
good.
nice.
Carmel Cares also donated and installed a new roll-up door at the Forest Theater sound booth. And it's more sound booth oriented, but it's in the park. Forest Theater is a park. Upgraded landscaping around the post office parking lot. I think that's phase 1. I think there's some more that they plan to do, but parking lot's looking a little better. Also want to do a shout out to the Mission Trail Nature Preserve, the Wheaties group. They've been really doing tremendous amount of cleanup in the park, as well as the garden, no, not the garden club, the master gardeners have been out there and really making huge piles for Public Works to pick up. So shout out to them. And last but not least is miscellaneous topics. Last month, Leadership Carmel received Forest and Beach approval to do the nature play facilities at the Forest Hill Park. That's still going. We're getting into the weed, the nitty-gritty, and anchorage and sizes and colors and exactly where, and utility conflicts and phasing and not shutting down the park. So that's still moving along. We're making progress. We already talked about working with FEMA, so I won't go into that. Okay. We are working now with a new environmental consultant called Denise Duffy and Associates, that were selected to take over the North Dunes habitat restoration services and other on-call as needed environmental services. So this will be a shift in managing the North Dunes project. Okay, I'd rather not talk about reasons why, but that's what we're doing.
I was other human services that pretty much agreed to the help,
Yeah, it'll be more of the same, but I think we're going to be phasing out our current consultant. Back at the Forest Theater, The concession stand flooded in the storms, causing water infiltration and mold and things, so that facility is closed temporarily. So if you go to a show, you might want to bring some snacks, I guess. Miscellaneous topic, the City Hall wall. Actually, it's the wall right behind this. That's fallen into the parking lot. So probably for the next 3 months, if you come to the city, starting in a couple of weeks, the parking lot will be shut down. They're going to be rebuilding the wall over here. So if you, good luck trying to find the parking space in the summer around City Hall. Unfortunately, you probably can walk here. Don't know if this is going to happen at the May or June council meetings, but it's a fiber optic company called Wave Broadband. They started trying to get a permit from Carmel since 2016, because I started in 2017. They're going to be installing a wire on existing power poles, a big, like if you look at the map of the city, like a big U going from the Pebble Beach gate all the way downtown and back out to Ocean and Carpenter. We've had their arborist reports. We have the prior forester looked at those reports. There's no impacts. They're going to thread the needle through without cutting any branches. They're going to have an arborist with them as they're installing the fiber optic line. But we're going to see Wave Broadband trucks all over town for a few months coming up. So they're going to present to the city council, here's what we're doing, here's why. They also have to dig a trench on San Carlos Ocean to 7th. That's a small isolated spot. So anyway, there's going to be a big fiber optic project coming along. Yes, it's going to be wires going through a whole lot of trees, hundreds of trees, but it's all been, there's no tree impacts.
Until they fall.
Unless there's a storm. And then we call Tom.
But is this something we pay for, or they want?
No, it's all on their dime. In fact, they're paying the city for the impacts for their infrastructure in the city. Okay? So anyway, I just, in case it goes at the May meeting, I didn't want you to be blindsided and what's this all about. Okay? Underground utility district. Okay, so we've been working, our new project manager, Javier Hernandez, has been working with PG&E. We're looking at undergrounding one of two possible places. There could be more, but this is where we started. One is on Mission Trail Nature Preserve on the Willow Trail, the west side, south of 10? Is it 11? 10. 11, it is 11, okay. So there's that overhead line that we were hoping PG&E undergrounds themselves. They said no. So we have $900,000 allocated to the city that's in PG&E's coffers, but to underground a portion of power line. We said, hey, how about over here? And we gave them all the maps and exhibits they needed to do an evaluation. That's happening now. The other option is Del Mar parking lot along North Dunes, which is a forest parks thing, right? From San Antonio to go in, along Ocean Avenue to the bathroom, and then it kind of jogs around in the parking lot. There's the overhead line, so all those could come down. So we presented both. We probably can't afford either fully, but we said, hey, how about either of these? And then they're going to come back with, they both don't qualify, they both qualify, whatever. And then if they don't qualify, then we'll keep going looking at other options. But we thought, a scenic corridor, a primary location like Mission Trail or North Dunes would be a good place to start. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Just starting would be great.
Yes. And last but not least, after inspections in, I think, mid-March, we closed the 10th Avenue Beach stairways. It was after that last presentation by Hara Kusunich. We looked at the others. There was a couple others they said were high priority. We felt comfortable that they're okay for now. We'll keep our eye on it. But 10th Avenue we declared unsafe, so we shut it down. And that's all I had. Happy to answer any questions or open up to all the public comments.
Are there any questions from the commission?
I just have one question, and I don't know, this isn't specifically related to your report, but it is related to resident response. We did a visit on San Antonio, and there are some residents that have some outstanding permit requests that we didn't end up hearing. Do you remember that? I'm just wondering what our plan is
For trees or for
to
what?
meet that resident's needs. Do you remember they were,
Yeah, the ones on.
The
San-
dispute that's on,
I think it's on San Antonio?
The hedge.
near the Carmel gate.
Yeah, the hedge, that will be
Is
at
it-
the May meeting. Remember, there was the
Right.
attorneys were not,
Yes.
One of the attorneys was traveling.
yeah, there was a medical emergency, the one was traveling, but now it's not for, sorry, not March, May.
May.
Okay, so it is calendared and.
It's calendared
we're-
for-
Okay.
I believe they had requested May, if I'm not mistaken. But
Right.
yes, we have it.
The
tabled.
commission requested at the next meeting, and then the attorneys couldn't agree.
That's
So they all agreed to May, that's what we're doing.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that
No, we didn't forget.
we don't have anybody that we're being remiss to on that responsiveness.
Right. And in fact, that item was already before you, it was in the packet at the last minute, there was a medical emergency. So it's the same report, and
It'll be in next month's packet.
it'll be next month's packet, again.
Is it possible to have a timeline? It seemed like some of the information we were provided previously, there were some conflicts in the timeline and the materials. Is it possible to have a timeline from the city's perspective about that particular?
Yes, I think Commissioner
location?
Mickey asked the same question last month, or maybe 2 months
The
ago.
other month.
The written report, written by the planner, Catherine Wallace, has the correct timeline, the correct information. She
And that will be in the
assured-
packet.
There are two sides that are opposing, with attorneys that are opposing, that are providing their side of the
Their
story.
time.
Okay? And that's why this issue is coming before you, because there's a disagreement. But I hang my hat on what's the city's written report from the planner, who's been heavily involved with this whole project.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission?
Just when do you think, and I know we're getting a lot of new people in here, and everyone is doing an incredible job. It's really, I'm so impressed. And Tom, I'm so impressed.
I never got
everybody.
that tough. I never, never once.
It's incredible.
So, you know.
But do we have a general timeline as we're entering into summer as to when we think that the steering committee is going to start to get together?
It's a good question. Brandon and I need to determine that.
Okay.
We should really solidify that this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kept having to push that matter. We just couldn't get to it before.
I absolutely get it.
Outstanding. You're spot on. Yeah, we need to nail that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll be letting us know.
Then can we get some more applications for people who might be interested in doing
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Did we ever post that?
No, we
It
did
never
not.
made it to, we had the ad.
Yes. Yes.
Never posted.
Sarah prepared the.
Okay, it was never
Yeah.
posted, that's
Correct.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's understandable. We haven't recruited. Don't take that as a.
Right.
But I would nominate Louise, actually.
Oh, there you go.
No, not my call.
How do we open up to public comment? Any hands up, perhaps?
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
Well, all right, then we'll close the public comment portion of that. And future agenda items, is there anything that we want to make sure is on a future agenda? Sounded like this symposium piece,
Yeah, Arts and Science Symposium,
it's some future agenda.
and then the steering committee, when we have something to say.
I think it would not be nice to see a recap of the first quarter of all the trees, because I think from January, I remember there was like 40 city trees and 40 private trees, and now we have another 70 between the ones removed and the ones that
Right.
fell. I think it
Right.
would be useful to just see
Right.
the quarterly summary,
Yeah, we were thinking the
because
same
the
thing.
amount of effort that's been extended by an incredibly lean, small team is extraordinary, actually, for our town. And I think having that summarized is really, would be fantastic.
Mhm.
Okay, well, if there's no other agenda items, then this meeting is adjourned.
Right?